Most people in Harris County have heard of Mercy General Hospital. It shut down back in 1998 after a fire in the boiler room caused part of the building to collapse. At least, that's what the news reported. But the people who worked there, at night especially during the final week, have a different story to tell. Kyle Renner was one of them. He worked night shifts as a janitor. Nothing fancy, just sweeping floors, taking out trash, and staying out of the way. But during that last week, something strange happened. An elevator he'd never seen before suddenly lit up, showing a floor that wasn't supposed to exist. The panel blinked. B3 access denied. Kyle had worked there for 6 years and never heard of a third basement. The hospital only had 2 officially. He assumed it was a glitch, until the doors slid open by themselves. A cold rush of air came out of the elevator, thick with the smell of metal and mold. Kyle stood frozen. He hadn't pressed anything, but something inside that elevator was waiting and calling him in. It was colder than any place he'd ever been. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping liquid that wasn't water. The walls were covered in faded patient charts, most dated before the 1970s. Kyle's breath fogged the air as he stepped forward. Then came the sound, not footsteps, but dragging, like someone pulling something heavy across tile. Kyle froze. Down the hallway, a light flickered on in one of the side rooms. A shape moved inside, slow, deliberate. He peeked in. The room was filled with surgical equipment decades out of date. On the table lay a body partially decomposed, yet fresh enough to bleed. Beside it, a nurse in a stained white cap whispered to herself, humming something off-key. She looked up. Her eyes were sewn shut with black thread. Still, she stared directly at Kyle. "You shouldn't be here," she said, though her mouth never moved. The walls behind her pulsed, like they were breathing. Kyle ran. The corridor had changed. It twisted unnaturally, doubling back on itself. Every exit sign now pointed to room 13. That room didn't exist in Mercy General, he would know, but here was the only way out. He opened the door to room 13. Inside was a single chair facing a mirror. On it sat a man in hospital scrubs, soaked in blood. Kyle blinked. The man had his own face, same beard, same tattoo, but with his throat slit open. The double whispered, "You cleaned up their mess, now you're part of it." The room spun. Kyle's reflection moved even when he stood still. Then everything went dark. They found Kyle the next morning in the real basement, curled up in a supply closet, muttering numbers over and over. Room 13, room 13. Room 13. His fingernails were torn, and there were scratch marks all over the walls. He never spoke again, but he drew hundreds of sketches of the same hallway, the same nurse, the same mirror, and always, in red ink, one line scrawled across the bottom: B3 is still open. Last year, a new medical center broke ground on Mercy General's old property. During excavation, workers reported finding a sealed elevator shaft that didn't appear on any blueprint. The lowest floor was labeled B3, and Sumion had pressed the call button from below.